What up, everybody? It's the Well-Spoken Token, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about a new anime that just dropped yesterday or today. It depends on where you're looking at here. Trigun Stampede. I was an avid old school Trigun fan back in the Funimation dub time frames, and I know I said the words Funimation dub, so we already know what's coming here. Inconsistencies with the manga. They took so much out. They basically told their own story. So, I mean, I was very interested when I dug into it and found out that Trigun was getting another anime. At first, I thought it was going to be a sequel. I thought maybe we were going to get, the continuation of Vash and Nai's story. It would have been fantastic. I would have been very excited, but I don't think there was any source material for that. So, as I dove into the first episode today, I realized, oh, it's a reboot or a retelling or an adaptation or however you want to say it. What I'll say is this: it's really fresh. I walked into the situation very ready to rip this anime a new one. I'm not a fan of the 3D animation on a regular basis, like depending on the actual story, depending on how it was used, how stylized it was. And what I'll say about Trigun Stampede, exceptionally stylized. The characters move in this manner in a way that is super fluid, hyper real, like almost like Prince of Egypt, Treasure Planet, Disneyland type, Disney's type stuff. Like, remember when Disney was out here painting shit and then you would overlay different things over it to make it like, remember Atlantis, how the fucking Leviathan looked? This is kind of the process with this anime. Very 3D animated and computer generated, but at the same time, like, it gives you the feel of real characters. Like Millie in this particular series is a little bit a lot different than what she was in the OG Funimation dub. I'm saying Millie's not even there, actually. That's one thing. That's a character that I was missing. Meryl Strife is a news anchor, actually. I mean, news reporter, excuse me. A news reporter instead of like an insurance adjuster, which was what her and her counterpart Millie were in the Funimation dub. I don't know why they chose to make that change, and I'm an anime. Now, first of all, guys, I'm an anime only guy when it comes to Trigun. I need to go out as I'm watching Trigun Stampede. I plan on going back and reading Trigun and Trigun Maximum, because I've found out that apparently it's been super toned down as far as the Funimation dub went. Like, a lot of the sexuality and violence and gore and things were removed, and yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of any sexuality really when it came to the original Trigun like Funimation run. It was the closest thing to romance you had was like Millie being in love with Wolfwood and shit, and even that didn't progress excessively really. And so, and then also with a gore aspect, I was like, oh shit, because there were some moments where Vash could have really messed someone up. And I think the worst thing that happened to somebody was that they had like a spinning technological implant, and that thing like basically spun them out from the inside out. So that was like the goriest thing that happened for me in Trigun back in the day. Well, save for all the body horror, because there's quite a bit of body horror, and there's a lot of suspense and tension and things that like manipulate you mentally in the OG Trigun, the Funimation. So as I'm watching Trigun Stampede and feeling this like lighthearted aspect of it, I was like, oh man, this is gonna get dark real quick. Like, that's one of my favorite things about like a really lighthearted start to an anime, is that it has the opportunity to take you into such a dark and scary place with these characters that you started to fall in love with. Vash is on the money for me. I was really worried about this new Neo Vash type situation, because they reworked his character design. Instead of him having like that, the trench coat duster vibe that he had, like with it's still old Western, but it's like neo Western. And my G's got like, yes, if you haven't seen Edge Runners, or if you've seen Edge Runners, his coat's a bit like David's, but in the manner that it's got like one long zipper, one continuous thing, not like a bunch of different buckles and straps and things. And at first I thought I was gonna hate it, but the way they've got that shit set up, it's so dope, because every time it opens, like, you see the profile of my man, and he's just like, he's not stick thin, but he's just so lean and like small, and so it lends itself really well to like outlining his form and his shape. They've taken a lot of opportunities with the coat and stuff, because that's an iconic part of Vash for me, is like, oh, okay, man, I remember this coat and how it used to flap. The nigga used to be running around rolling and shit, his coat fucking flaps, and it was amazing. I thought it was really fun. So when I started watching Stampede, and it opens with this kind of like this spaceship situation. I was like, okay, awesome. They're giving us the backstory, because, you know, if you've watched the OG Funimation, it's like 20-30 years old, so I really feel like I can't spoil things, but I like they're taking different directions with the new anime. So I'm excited, because being a story that I've been so used to and rewatched so many times, like I think I've watched Trigun at least 4 times now, maybe more, at least in bits and pieces, because I've definitely seen episodes like 6 times over, because thanks to Toonami for all the reruns. So I'm really excited to watch Trigun in a streaming era where we got a drop each week. We're gonna get a chance to see what Studio Orange has in store for us. Vash, again, is still just as innocent, is still just as funny, really, and as aloof in a way. Like, he's always playing the ditz and he's playing the dullard a lot, like when it comes to the thing, and that's his vibe, that's his situation. You do see a couple of serious moments where you're like, okay, wow, like you get to see the depth. It's almost like this first episode, like as most of them, is a pilot, and it just gives you an opportunity to be like, oh, here's an enclosed story. And I mean, of course it's going to continue because it is an anime, but you get a pretty decent introduction to Vash. It's not the best, really. Like, there's an action portion where there's a duel. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's pretty epic and it's fun, but it didn't give me that soaring feeling inside. It didn't give me butterflies or anything like that. But I think that as I watched it, I saw the potential for me to have those feelings yet. So it's definitely something that I'm like, okay, I'm latched in. I'll definitely give it the usual polite 4 episodes and see how I feel about it as I go on. Another interesting point about this is that they've reworked Vash's metal arm. I think it's his left arm. In the anime, in the manga, he's got a metal arm that eventually he adds a submachine gun to it. I think prior to it was like just a small cannon, but I haven't seen that worked in yet, but I don't know how they'd work it into the new design on the arm. It's got this, all the technology, they've decided to kind of go a very interesting route. You've got a lot of like gels and like smooth surfaces, things like that, rather than like your typical like gunmetal style like setup for a lot of the prosthetics and prostheses and shit. Like, his arm looks like it's like fluid, almost like it's gonna like, it can transform at any moment. But the way that they're using the physics in the show, it seems like it's pretty like solid, like it's the form is pretty uniform. It's going to stay the same. So I'm interested to see how much transformation that goes from there. There was a really cool portion of the anime where it displays like a strange like sonic ability, or maybe like a pressure ability that I've never, like, that wasn't shown in like the OG Funimation dub. So I'm like, well, what are we going to do with this? So there's even more info there, and they've redesigned the plants, like the way the basic story behind that whole situation with Trigun is that once upon a time humans were a spacefaring race, and we were out there, we're trying to colonize other planets, and Vash and his brother, they both are, I don't know if they're going to be experiments in this situation or something like that, but they're basically small children at the time, and they seem to be of strange descent. I'm not gonna try to like give too many spoilers because they might change it in this anime, but the colony ships get they end up being attacked or sabotaged, something to that degree, and they crash on a desert planet. And there on that desert planet, some of the individuals that were inside in cryo sleep, or because that's how they do the colonization. They put a bunch of people in cryo sleep, they take them on a big old ship like an ark, and then they float it over to another motherfucking planet, and they basically like drop it in and allow them to repopulate. Well, essentially when the ship crash lands, a great deal of them people, obviously they die, but looks like some people survive, and they end up on a kind of semi-deserted planet. And with that, they need to not necessarily terraform, but they need this, like, the ingredients for human life, you know, water, good breathable air, all that good shit. So they designed plants, of course, to do so. In the old Funimation dub, they were like giant light bulbs, like, essentially, and that they powered the whole city. It was like nuclear energy type situation. Whereas in the new anime, it's bio-organic. Like, I mean, it was bio-organic prior to, but it just didn't look like it in the Funimation dub. It was a giant fucking light bulb, like, I remember that. But this time it's really more so of like a giant tank. There's these plants that they keep talking about, and it's not like a power plant, they're literally talking about plants. I thought that was a cool like play on words. I think that's something that they touch on in the Funimation dub, but they don't ever actually, like, because it's a fucking giant light bulb, because it's a giant light bulb, it doesn't like convey the same information as like, oh, a plant. And we actually in the first episode get a chance to see Vash's brother right there at the very end, and he is in the same kind of interesting coat that he had on when they were in space. And then also there's a, like, oh my god, there's a very interesting reveal, like, where are we going with this? What type of creature is this? What's happening? Damn, I'm trying not to give any spoilers for this, but I'm with all of these little elements that they've introduced in the first episode. They've managed to hook me, someone who was like, oh, the animation is going to be trash because it's CG and they're not actually, you know, pinning it. And then I was like, well, let me look into Studio Orange. They did Beastars, which was really popular, and I didn't actually watch it, but they also did Dimension W, which had Christopher Sabat actually voices the main character in Dimension W, and that was what actually led me to watch that. And that was another example of like a really like stylized form of animation. The 3D was utilized in a manner that was really pleasing to me, and I mean, that's me. It takes me, whenever I see a 3D animation or something like that, like that kind of takes me out of the suspended disbelief there. Like I stop having such a fun time with the anime when the art style suddenly changes. With this, it always felt, again, it always felt like stylized. It always felt like they were going like this was the end goal. We weren't just cutting corners. We weren't just like, we just don't have the money for this right now. This is the way we want this to look, and we've put so much time and effort into making it look like surreal. It's not quite as animated as, like, say, a Big Hero 6, right, where everybody's like a 3D model and a character there, but it's got this painting vibe that's really interesting. Like, again, I mentioned Prince of Egypt, I mentioned Atlantis, Treasure Planet. These are these kind of like time frame in Disney where they were doing this really deliberate choice in like the way they use their shadows and the color palettes that they were picking, because it lent themselves to the actual art. And I hate to keep talking about the art, but I mean, it's a remake of an anime that came out 20 years ago. So it's a situation where me as a fan, there's a lot of things to pick at. There's a lot of things to be wary of when it came to really releasing such a nostalgic piece of anime history. You know, Trigun's a lot of people's top, like in at least the top 10 for sure. I mean, especially if you're like from the US, you know, those Toonami shows, those Adult Swim shows, they molded us. They gave us a lot of like, they gave us that stepping stone into, you know, the world of anime and things like that, and these characters and these archetypes and tropes that we love. And Vash is one of them for sure, because he's the lighthearted buffoon of a character that's truly a like a high battle IQ, incredible warrior at the end of the day. So like, shout out to Trigun Stampede for being really dope, like for being something that I'm ready to dive into. Now, you guys could, Studio Orange, y'all could drop the ball, y'all could fumble it real quick, you know, if y'all start, you know, deciding that you want to, you know, cut some corners, because y'all did so good with this animation prior to. There were little choppy bits here or there, like in the space scene. There was the flying through space was a little bit meh, but at the same time, it's a big black void of a space. What is you supposed to do with it? So shout out to you, Studio Orange. Shout out to Trigun Stampede. Thank you guys. It's the Well-Spoken Token. If you haven't checked out our Instagram, if you haven't checked out our Twitter, please jump on that. Please come see us. Please come check out the podcast. We love you. Thank you so much. It's the Well-Spoken Token, and I'm out.